what are the core stories that shape your business? Now, in terms of stories to tell, obviously there's your own personal journey. That's one set. Where have you been? What have you been through? Where did you learn the things you needed to learn that demonstrate that you're someone who should be listened to? It's not about saying where you were on holiday. It's not about who you went with the kids. It's what made you the expert you are. Then you've got stuff around the problems, the challenges that your audience are facing. Then you've got stuff around the outcomes that your expertise or your business can achieve for people. Then you've got the business itself. And then you've got the big picture stuff. All of those, they're different kinds of stories. The origin stuff is your story as the hero. The problems and the transformations, that's your audience's story. Where do they begin? Where could they go? The business stuff is obviously about this thing you've created. And then the big picture stuff is what's happening in the world? Like, what's the bigger theme to all of that?
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Nico Ceballos Jones, is founder of Story Captain. So Nico, welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Fred. What a pleasure to be here.
And I forced my Castilian pronunciation of Ceballos to be Ceballos because it has Colombian root, I think you told me.
Colombian root, yeah, I'm half Colombian. Ceballos, not to be confused with Sabayos, which is Spanish for horse.
Caballo, yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. But anyway, more importantly, Story Captain. You're all about stories. And we'll talk about sort of how Story Captain actually works in a minute, but let's just think about stories for a minute and why you, well, I mean, to be fair, but yeah, why do you think they're so important?
Yeah, well, I think if you're coming at it from a business context, because I think story, the use of the word story in business, in marketing, it's in danger of becoming a bit of a cliche. It's often thrown around and it means different things to different people. So it might be worth pinning down first, like what I say a story is, which is pretty simple, which is it's something important that you need people to believe in. That's what a story is effectively. The first story ever told by a caveman, which is like, don't go over there. That's probably the first story ever told. Don't go over there. And when it became a story, it was like, look, if you go over there, this will happen. So don't pass it on. It's something important that needs to be memorable, that needs to get people to change the way they think, ultimately, so they'll change what they do. So that's what I kind of, how I pin it down as. And when you say like, I'm super into story is the name above the door. I'm not into people. That's what I believe in. I'm not like a slave to structure. I'm not a slave to, all of these, like the intricacies of stories. That's a part of it. Story at its heart is around people and what they decide is important, what the person decides is necessary to believe in, and how that person thinks other people should change the way they act. That to me is story. And it's possibly not what other people think it might be. People kind of think it's just like picking up out something from your past and just kind of riffing out there. It's more than that, way more, or it can be.
You know what? You've already shone a light on something for me here.
Okay.
I wonder if I've got too hung up about structure of stuff. As in kind of, the stuff you just said, I sort of get, or I did get, but I've kind of lost sight of that a little bit. And you just calibrated me back already to hang on a minute. Why are we using these? We're telling them because we believe something is important. We want to share information. We want to get that across. And a story is just a damn good way to do that because it's how we've always done it, really. Before LinkedIn.
Yeah. So that's the thing. That's
before
the thing.
Internet, before loads of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the other stories will be around long after LinkedIn is bitten the dust. And I'm hoping they'll still be around after whatever technological nightmare is around the corner. At its heart is people trying to get other people to behave differently or think differently or learn something. If you want to get down into like what a story is rather than how it's structured, that is the thread that is that is way more in parallel and conducive to a powerful business than just the whole, well, you got to begin here, then go here, and then.
I suppose I do get interest in that stuff because I'm trying to help people do it, a bit like you, in doing a really good job of it, because
Mhm.
it can get a bit messy if people have sort of half got this idea, oh, I've got to tell them a story and this will go off and it. I mean, yeah, actually telling things like you are down the pub to some degree is good, but probably need a little bit more than that.
Well,
Um,
this is half the thing is if you think, because I set myself the challenge when AI kind of struck early last year, was like, just how foundational can I come at this whole angle? Or yeah, forget about me. How foundational are the principles of what we just discussed? And if you bring it down to set aside the how of telling it, if you bring it down to like what are the stories that are shaping you, your life, and your business, it may well be that you tell one of those down the pub and you change the way you tell it there. It may be that you tell the same story. We can get the specifics of it. Maybe that you tell the same story in a boardroom in a different way. Same story, different way. Maybe that you go and tell that story at home to a family member to get them on the same page in terms of what you're doing. Same story, different way. When you think about it like that, suddenly these things become far more than just tactical applications in the moment. They can become genuine foundational assets of a business that work for you.
and now we're talking foundational assets, but actually, even just the story you've told there, which was AI, November 22 pops up, everyone goes charging off into the tech hills. And you're like, no, I'm going back to foundational capes. I'm going the opposite direction to you lot because I think you're going to get lost getting all excited about your imaginary friend making stuff up. Why are you actually doing it? And how would you do it if someone pulled the plug on all that?
Yeah, and that's a perfect illustration of what I would call a big picture story. So again, set me aside for a sec. But look, so one of the story card categories is big picture. That goes to industry level, society level, world events level. What is going on in the world that may only loosely connect to what you're doing, but it sets the foundational urgency or a sense of context for everything you're speaking about. So AI is an interesting one, and I'm not saying anyone is right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. There's only what works or what like feels resonant to you. But there's people out there who like frame the big picture thing as a massive opportunity to get on board with. Oh, make an AI tool now, you'll make a killing, or invest in AI. Get on the edge of this wave. There's only limited time left, and we're at a turning point. You have to start doing this now. Either surf this wave or get dumped by it, and that's fine. It's a brilliant big picture story, and there's so many ways you can come at it, and so many different component parts that can be pulled out and turned into loads of things. I'm more interested in a story card that's called After the Flood, which is after this wave is broken, what's left for humanity to do? And I don't accept this idea that we just have to roll with there being a schism in society and there's the people who are, kind of ruled by AI and who are the ones who are using it and two sides and you can't cross. What happens? What is there left for humans to do at that point? What will we be telling stories about then? Because it ain't going to be what we're telling them about now. And when you go down the rabbit hole, it's like, yeah, that's what I'm interested in that big picture sense.
Oh, I love this. So you mentioned cards. I'm going to come back to this in a second
Sure.
because this is why I've seen you do stuff, and I think this is very very cool. But just you mentioned foundational assets. Just
Mm.
I don't want us to gloss over that too quickly. What do you mean by that? That's an important part of what we're doing here.
Yeah. So when I say foundational asset, I'm referring to what I call a core story. So yeah, I developed like over 100 individual story cards, 5 categories, but those are really just kind of a top level way in. The real trick is using them or using any method, basically. Set aside the cards is what are the core stories that shape your business? Now, in terms of stories to tell, obviously there's your own personal journey. That's one set. Where have you been? What have you been through? Where did you learn the things you needed to learn that demonstrate that you're someone who should be listened to? It's not about saying where you were on holiday. It's not about who you went with the kids. It's what made you the expert you are. Then you've got stuff around the problems, the challenges that your audience are facing. Then you've got stuff around the outcomes that your expertise or your business can achieve for people. Then you've got the business itself. And then you've got the big picture stuff. All of those, they're different kinds of stories. The origin stuff is your story as the hero. The problems and the transformations, that's your audience's story. Where do they begin? Where could they go? The business stuff is obviously about this thing you've created. And then the big picture stuff is what's happening in the world? Like, what's the bigger theme to all of that? So all of those might have multiple core stories in them. Again, the ones you're going to be telling over and over again in lots of different ways, conversationally, in content, to your team members, to clients, potential clients, to family, to networking. Once you can pin them down and get a sense of what they are, you'll see them reoccurring. And at that point, they can be turned into assets or thought of as assets to be deployed. They get stronger every time in the telling. Then when they're foundational and when you really understand how they fit into the larger whole and drive your business, then the tactical application of them in the millions of different tactical things you could do for your business, right? Content, SEO, all these things, website copy, presentation skills, interview questions, all that stuff. It feeds into all of them. Every single one of them, every single strategic step you take can be in part guided by these core stories when you come at it from a certain way. So that's a foundational asset. It's in the absolute bedrock of what your business does, and more importantly, what you do if you're a certain kind of business.
Oh, I love this. Because I'm thinking about it. So, when I first started in sales, my assets were a brochure with a sample box. Yeah, that's what, no, and I suppose, head was filled with some, I suppose there were stories, but it's probably actually more facts and figures, which are particularly interesting.
Facts
And
and
go out
figures
and
are
tell
story.
people about that stuff. They are, but they're not as interesting as some of the stuff as to, like you've said there, why have we made this product? Because it solves this problem for the customer. Talk to them about that stuff. Tell them a story about another customer we've done that for. That's going to grab their attention. The outcomes that this customer got. Again, wrap it up in the way that you've learned to say this. The more you tell it, the better you get at it. Yeah. Why are you actually sat in front of them as the person who's there to help them solve that problem? That's why, I've seen these. I think very visually. Yeah, I'm an easy person to tell a story to, Nico. Very easy. I think I got like a bandolier, those bandoliers that you got with like all the bullets in it. So the bullets, and just like all your little stories that you've got, you can just pull it out and go, right, bang, that's the right one for this time. And you connect and you have a response, you get a reaction. And you just pick which one, right time, boom. And you know which ones to pick because they work best.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting insight into the way your mind works. So you've come at it from I've got a bandolier of bullets that I can load in and fire when the necessary target appears. I think of them as playing cards.
Yeah.
But it's just, you absolutely hit upon it. Once you recognize them as repeating, as assets and foundational, then you play or shoot the ones you need in the moment instinctively. It's a beautiful thing. It turns it into a game, maybe, Laser Quest on your part. In my case, it's like a card game. It's a game of stories. It's a game of making people believe, and that's the aim.
And of course, well, you clearly think in terms of cards because that's what you've done. And that's what really caught my attention is, I understand these different sorts of story and you've categorized them and go, we get those. And absolutely, I can see those for business. I can see them for a salesperson, a sales individual, any salesperson, I would say. But these cards, you've got a way of saying, okay, we've got these stories, but they're within them all the sort of different, they're like the suits, I think, if I'm right. We've got these different cards that if you learn that and you can then mix and match and you can play these different hands, that's how you create your story. And that's how you're going to get competent pretty quickly in being able to deploy these.
Yeah. It's
so talk through how these work. I probably completely butchered what's a brilliant idea. Made it sound dead complicated.
This is part of the thing with the idea of a story. And if you're a purist, and there's part of me that is a story purist who respects the art and spent a long time, trying to write a novel and hanging around with people who are some of the best storytellers you can imagine. Part of it is, once you've created something and put it out there, other people kind of decide what it is. And the thing that with these is that if you were to dump these 100 cards onto a table, it's kind of just the contents of the entrepreneurial mind. That's not to say it can't work for teams. There's a team workshop. There's ways creative agencies can use this in workshops, all this stuff. At its heart, it's aimed at the founders, the business owners, the entrepreneurial mind. And it's just a way of uncovering, structuring, and compartmentalizing things that are already there that you might have had an instinct were incredibly powerful, but had never quite almost been given permission to put into a certain shape. You might have known they were great and want to elevate them, or you might never even considered it was a thing. And it's like, oh yeah, I do think something about that. Oh, and can that be elevated? So in its most simplistic terms, if you were to go through them all and just almost answer the questions they pose, you'd know a lot more about yourself and your business by the time you're finished. And then there's levels above that where I work directly with people or in a group setting and start to use certain combinations of cards yes, to tell more nuanced stories, but also to dig more deeply into what you're really made of, to do what I call searching for the snaps of new energy. So most people, myself included, this instinct to, when doing the business, working on the business side of things, it really helps to have someone push you further, further, further. The coaching aspect, further, further, further. You can think of these cards, if you lay them in sequence, it's like a coach asking, well, why? But why? What about this? What about that? Why? And the deeper you go, the more likely you are to hit upon your own unique viewpoints about things that are quite widely discussed already. 'Cause a lot of people I talk to, they kind of feel like they don't have much new stuff to add to a conversation. But if they're worth their salt and if they're an expert, the potential is there for them to find these highlights, these snaps of new ways of thinking and just grab hold of them. And that's almost like a purest way, that a thing to get to beyond the structure, which they can be used for. So yeah, there's so many different ways it can be used, but that's one of the most exciting.
Yeah. I'm thinking of one is actually pulling out of people how good you really are. Because I think sometimes we forget, standing on the mountain of value thing, and you're looking across at the other mountain and you forget to look down and go, actually, I've got all this stuff that I've done and can do and I know and I've got in my locker and it's just, that's normal to me, isn't it? Yeah. I actually, somebody said to me the other day, they said, you speak Spanish, don't you? I went, oh yeah. Like it was just a normal thing. They're like, wow. I'm like, oh, that's just normal. No, that's a big deal. So the stuff like that.
Mhm.
But these unique viewpoints, you call them snaps. Is that just like a snap your fingers and you get a reaction, or is that a funky acronym or something? Or is it
So,
just how you
so,
think?
yeah. So what I do on the accelerator I run is I run patterns of cards in hot seats with participants and get everyone to run the same pattern at the same time. And we speak through responses to each card or note them down. And then at the end of it, it's like, right, where was the snap in that for you? And quite multiple times, people have been like, oh, I wasn't really feeling anything. Well, there was something in my head though for this one. And it was this, this, and this. And I was like, it's something that you might gloss over and it might hit you as powerful, or it might just slip by and you need some kind of external feedback to go, hang on a sec, what did you just say then? Oh, this little thing about X. Tell me
Yeah.
more about that. Suddenly that becomes the beginning of something super powerful. So you mentioned before, the idea of the mountain of value. That is a core story. That's an asset that gets told over and over again, not only by the person who coined it, Daniel Priestley.
Oh yeah, we better give him a call out, otherwise it will be a trouble.
A lot of this was reverse engineered from people like that. They speak in core stories. Go and listen to the Daniel Priestley podcast and watch how many times he gives you the names of his stories.
Yeah.
Those are snaps of new energy. Those are his viewpoints on things that are widely discussed, but they are his. And if you want those things, or if you want to, have those outcomes, some of them are outcomes, some of those are shifts in thinking, some of the things you should do, but they're all associated with his expertise and what he does. And every single one is an asset that builds his business while he's sleeping. They're the bedrock of all these things, all the books, the podcasts, these things that are out there doing it. Yes, they are the assets, but the assets beneath the assets are the core stories that drive them. And that is a fact.
He is making them into digital assets.
Yep.
Every week now, I think, start recording, April 24. He is dropping a 5-minute video onto YouTube, which is essentially a story. And it's about something that is relevant to the audience that is like, oh, yeah, cool. But the way that it's delivered, again, he's excellent at delivering. And that's what he's doing. So he's turning the story into literally a digital asset.
Yeah.
And then he sometimes puts it into infographic and stuff and repackaged it in different ways. And say, you go, ton of assets from something just out of his head.
Yeah.
Just. That's a stupid word to say just, isn't it?
The working out, the working out has been done so powerfully. And that's the thing that people miss. First thing to know is that the digital assets, what it ends up as a video, like I said, infographic, that's the tactical application of the core story. But if you look at the sales process in Dent, there's the books, and then there's the scorecard. And then on the sales conversation that I had when I went on one of the accelerators, the sales guy mentioned the stories. Then you go on the accelerator and the instructors mention the stories. They form parts of the intellectual property that gets delivered in the teachings. And then us, the cohort, we discuss the stories between us. And then I've had networking meetings when I've met people who've they've talked about the stories. You know what I mean? These are genuine assets that go everywhere, but they've been earned. because anyone can pull a nice title from anywhere. It's easier than ever with technology. When someone sits down and asks you about it, you'll soon figure out who is just, getting these fake pearls of wisdom from nowhere and who has truly earned what I call the earned pearl of wisdom. They've done the work, they've retro engineered it, they've tested it to death. And this is the result of their learning, which is why it's so powerful.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This earned thing and demonstrating that you are the go-to person because you know the stuff, not because you know how to ask something to tell you the stuff, which
Yeah.
generates stuff because it's its job. Yeah. Um, but the one about the unique viewpoints, interesting viewpoints. So just one, is that a separate deck or is that a specific storyline? Because you had problems, you had challenges, problems. Then you had, let me just make sure I got it right. So
Yeah,
you've
we're
got the
into the details.
challenges of your audience, you've got the outcomes the audience will enjoy. Did they turn into the interesting viewpoints, or is that a separate way of listing those?
Okay, right. We're digging in here. We're digging into some pretty
We are, because I really would like the audience to understand how to start pulling out these unique viewpoints. This is the stuff that will set them apart. This is
yeah.
the stuff that you can lead in to a customer with. This is what will make them go, oh, really? Hadn't thought of that. You look as though you might be someone who is worth speaking to. If you say, oh, my product has got a nice shiny button on it, you're probably
Yeah.
not. um, so
No.
it's that way we can use it to build a hypothesis. That's the kind of language I would use.
Mhm.
But this thing that just shines a different light and they go, oh, need to talk more here.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's no, yeah,
All
you're doing
right.
some stuff there. So
Now you want to get
let's
sucked in. You want to get
I
sucked.
do want to let's
Like,
go tactical on this. Let's go tactical.
okay, let's get into the tactics thing then. So the snaps, they're most powerful on the challenge category, the transformation category, and the big picture category. So that's around the problems that your audience faces, around the outcomes they can expect, and what's happening in the world. So if we were to take the challenge category, which is full of cards that focus in on like, right, where's your audience right now? What do they think right now? What do they want right now? Where are they on their journey right now? What are they scared of right now? What mistakes are they making? Myths they believe? Traps they're falling into? Superpowers they have? What's happening now? Right. So if you were to go down the rabbit hole of some of those cards, combine them together and search for these snaps and find something powerful in there, there's certain things you can turn that snap into to elevate it to an asset. And if we take and think of that as the title of a core story, they tend to be around certain kind of cards. One is a mindset shifter card, and one is a magic bullet. Those tend to be the ones for the positive, let's say the positive versions of the stories. And then you can have cautionary versions, which is stories about the problems people face. So some examples, because I think that would be helpful, right? The magic bullet is this idea that like, right, if you were to unify every single complicated step that someone would need to take in order to annihilate all their problems and basically get onto easy street. And if you could pack that all down into a tiny little magic bullet and just go, what would it be? That's the magic bullet. Something like, oh yeah, you just need to become a key person of influence. That's a magic bullet. Simple. That will solve all your problems. Get your core stories straight is my one. You need to get your core story straight. Start with why. Simon Sinek. It's an action you can take, right?
So let me test this. Sorry to interrupt you. Think like a partner, adapt a more collaborative sales approach.
Think like a partner might be more of a mindset shifter, but
Okay.
it tends to overlap. But yeah, that's the thing. Think like a partner, title of a core story. All you need to do, if you want this and you're at this point in your journey and you think you may be doing this, but you're having this problem, what you need to do is think like a partner. Oh, okay. Like you said, it gets me leaning in. It's like, oh, you've seen this so often. You know the ins and outs of where I am so well that you kind of turn for it as shorthand, and it's exciting. And yeah, like I said, there could be a mindset shifter. Other mindset shifters might be, not my circus, not my monkeys. Attitude determines altitude. Data is delicious. Is the other things? These things that are a bit like fresh thinking
Yeah.
around standard subjects. So that data is delicious. It's from someone called Katrina, who's a social media expert, talking about like paid ads. But she repeats it all the time. It's just about like the importance of data. But that's her thing. Oh, data is delicious. Data is delicious. It's cool. It's fun. Draws you in. You find a lot of business books that are called by the name of magic bullets. champion thinking, sell like crazy. But then again, you go down to stuff like be like water, Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
You actually need to be like water. What is that? What the fuck does that? You don't know what that means until Bruce Lee tells you about it, draws you in. But it's just this. It's a next level of thinking that most don't get to. But you watch the best do it. They speak in these core stories. Success leaves clues. That's Tony Robbins' mindset shifter. Doesn't tell you what to do, but he just tells you what's important. Right. So that's just one category.
So I'm always banging the drum about implementation, not information.
Yep.
So in other words, we can sit and I can tell you about stuff all day, but you've got to go away and do it. So I'm not sure what's that.
Yeah, it's around that. It's in that space.
Yeah.
But then the trick is to, in the same way that we're here right now, we mentioned Daniel Priest's name. The trick and the aim is to have people sat around discussing you.
Yeah.
Discussing you in a space. That's the aim.
Yeah.
And you've got to give them the tools to do that. You've got to give them the assets to do that. Because imagine trying to tell someone about a book who didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
Give them that hook. So that's the challenge stuff. The outcomes is you got the like the cautionary tales as well. So those are quite positive ones we just did. But around the challenge things, again, this notion of getting across the impression that you understand problems so well, you see them so often, and you understand them to like from every conceivable angle. You've given them names. Like I did this work for a recruitment agency, and their clients they're chasing the impossible candidate all the time. So they've got this core story called The Impossible Candidate. Beware the impossible candidate. The black hole of brilliance is one that I use. Like beware just shouting out about every last thing and never getting a shape to them. Magical overthinking was one I saw the other day. That's good. Comparisonitis, blowing kisses in the dark in regard to advertising. The hustle paradox was a good one. These problems, be known for the problems and be associated with the solutions.
I'm working with somebody who's come up with some of these himself for what he does. He buys himself chemicals.
Yeah.
And he won't mind me saying it like that, deliberately trying to make it sound dull. But the way that he has codified a system to make it highly transparent, highly ethical is really clever. And the way he's calling out problems, he calls one of them risk roulette.
There you go.
What do you mean by risk roulette? Oh, well, I mean, if you're not tracking everything back and it's totally transparent, then you're running a risk. The way that you're buying stuff, it could come back and bite you. Like, 2 words. And then the other one is a green maze. Ooh, green maze. I mean, yeah, you're trying to show that you are sustainable and ethical, or you've got to fill in so much stuff, and it gets really quite technical in that, and you've got to, or I can do it for you. I can't remember the third one off the top of my head, but those two are stuck in my mind.
You've hit upon a really important point there that's worth pausing on. How many people do you meet who they struggle to kind of sum up what their business does? They're always looking for this, like the killer kind of intro pitch. And obviously, look, if we're Dent disciples, there's the name, same fame, aim, game and stuff. But conversationally, if someone asks you and they want to talk about what you do, it could be a challenge. So you just did it there. What you were doing there, you just told, you were kind of giving that guy's core stories as an example. The story he was telling there was a story of his customers. Basically, oh yeah, well, people are having this problem. They tend to do this. They need to think like this. And ultimately, they need to do this. And then that's easy to talk about. If you're an expert, if you care about the people you're helping and you're knowledgeable, it's easy. That's an easy story to tell and it's fun. And you can tell it better every time. And you did it at the end there. All you have to do to describe what you do is right at the end go, so that's what I do for people. Yeah. You just described exactly what your business does, but from the perspective of either the client or better yet, the person you're talking to. You're not saying, oh yeah, we do this and we do this and we do this. You are, but you aren't.
One that, again, the one I've used, I think similar to what you're saying there is, when you're being asked to introduce yourself at networking events and all that, and you really haven't got very long, and nobody's very interested anyway. The one I just stumbled across, I was being lazy. I was actually eating. It's a breakfast meat. I have to get stuck into bacon and eggs. And so what do you do? I said, I just rant about sales and write books to fix it. Nobody stopped asking me questions after that. It backfired because I didn't want to actually talk weirdly. But by saying that, it's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, ooh, that was quite good. Note to sell.
Yeah, I like it. I like that level of adaptability and knowing which card to play. Like, there's going to be some times where, like, you just play the magic bullet, or people want this, they need to do this. Like, game over. As opposed to the whole, like, the mission statement of like, oh, my name is X and I've done this, this, and this, and I've this and this and this awards. I'm currently trying to. I get it. There's a place for everything. But I think it's also a place for nuance and adaptability and and like instinctive intentionality, if I may call it that.
Oh, that sounds good. Still,
Yeah,
but
but hey,
so,
here's the thing,
so
like,
we've
so
only talked about
yeah,
challenge. We've only talked about
yeah, yeah.
challenge. And already, if people are listening to this and they're thinking, hang on a minute, how do I talk about, I actually talk about my products,
Mm.
or I maybe talk slightly about the customer's problems. We've just been riffing on this for nearly 10 minutes on the challenges. Outcomes was the other one that you talked about, which again is the other thing which people think, again, they talk about their solution, but not what the solution actually does. That's what I see in sales world. So again, in storytelling world, how do we spice that up and get that coming across really, really nicely?
I think it's so the challenge and the transformation categories, i.e., talking about and really having the discipline when you're talking about the problems people are experiencing to not stray over into the outcomes they can expect. I think this is key, if only for like a conceptual point of view in your own head, because it does something very cool that we'll come on to. The challenge and the transformations form like a bit of a 1-2 punch. So if you box off talking about the problems people have and how they need to think, and you stop right at the point where it's like what they need to do, then leap straight into, right, let's just imagine they've done it all. And then what can they look forward to? Separate category, the cards are green, right? Then you go way down the rabbit hole of the positive outcomes that your clients like have experienced. Picture the most ideal client you've ever worked with that you just got incredible results for. And then like just imagine them getting like, even more incredible results, and go right down the rabbit hole. And a similar kind of thing. Search for the bits that light you up, the snaps of new energy, the most powerful outcomes. And then in a similar way, give them a name, basically an effect that the implication is only you can achieve. I wouldn't say that explicitly. What we're doing here is we're not even mentioning our business, as we said. We're just talking about the positive outcomes of someone implementing our advice, let's say. We haven't yet tried to sell them anything, conceptually. So you're talking about these problems that you take in ownership of, that you are the expert on, the absolute undisputed authority, the sheer depth in which you can understand these problems. Likewise, the solutions, then it opens up this gap in the middle, which is like, well, how do I get there? And that leaves the gap for, reflexively, the kind of the how-to stuff. But set that aside, because that's 10 a penny. What you want to be in there is your business. And that's when that kind of moment is invited, the brand builder category comes in, which is how can you talk quickly, clearly, and powerfully about the solid structures, methods, processes, products, approaches, people that you've put in place, that you've built to make that basically a repeatable result, getting someone from the challenges they're facing to the outcomes that you know so well. And this is like this conveyor belt in the middle, a bridge with a conveyor belt. This is what we do.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And what I see in world of sales is that people spend all their time on the bridge talking about what they do, their products, their services, and not the pain and prize, to use. Again, I know we're chucking lots of different terminology around here, but that's
Mhm.
essentially what you're talking about, isn't it? The pain, the
100%.
challenge, the prize, the outcome. Yep. Yeah. Talk about those. You are more interesting. You are more magnetic. People want to hear your bridge then. But you go in saying, look at me wonderful bridge and look at it. And no, you're right.
Yep.
Why? 'Cause I don't need to hear it. I don't need to go from there to there. I don't even know, didn't need to go
Yeah.
anywhere.
Whereas where
It's that agitation with those things, isn't it? That's
yeah.
going to make a difference. Yeah.
And let's just go to that final category where the snaps become very powerful, which is the big picture one. So I think everything we talked about, and we haven't really touched on the origin stuff, which is good, I think, because that's kind of the most naturally story-ish. But I think the challenge transformations and the brand builders where the real power is. My favorite category is the big picture one, which is what's going on in the world that lays the context for all of this being urgent. And the word foundation is going to come as well. Foundational urgency versus tactical urgency. So we're not talking about the kind of urgency that is only 10 left and, buy now and save X. It's here's what's happening in the world that makes this a big deal. And, if you're in the world of sales and you're trying to offer some kind of, maybe training, the big picture story might be,
No, I am.
yeah, well, I'll ask you then. I'll ask you, let's craft it. What is
Life
happening?
coaching, folks.
Yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Right. Just give me really brief rundown of the, we're allowed here, right? The service, your highest ticket service,
Accelerator, collaborative selling accelerator.
collaborative selling, aimed at.
Sales team, salespeople,
Yeah.
complex sales, B2B. Hopefully people listening to this. Yeah. Who are probably selling, maybe manufacturers, people who've got stuff to sell. Yeah. Quite expensive.
Yeah. Rightly so. Think of the outcomes if you get a fully functional, take a sales team to the next level, flipping heck. Okay, so, and you mainly selling that to the sales team, the team leaders, or the team leaders' bosses kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're the ones who would hear the challenges, which I've again got 3 sort of category things: busy, 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 oldie, worldy, model mindset. The
Yeah.
little labels I give to them. The opposites of those are where they want to be.
Mhm.
And so it's the accelerator, which gives them all the things. So it's right outcomes, right conversations, right research, right opportunities in the right order. Actually, I put that in the wrong order. Start off with the right opportunities, then do the
Yeah.
right research, then have the right conversations, then put the right solution in place, then make sure they get the right outcomes themselves.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, so all of that is what I'd call it's at ground level. They can get their head around it. There might be some future gazing in terms of the transformations, in terms of stuff that they didn't think could be possible, but it's often quite solid ground. What the big picture does or can do, it can do lots of different things, but in that scenario, it can kind of make that ground seem a little bit less solid than maybe that they thought it was, by illuminating things that are happening in their industry and beyond that they haven't had the time to get a handle on. And if they have, they might not have fully interrogated the far-reaching consequences of it. So for most people that I work with, there's some degree of AI in the big picture stuff. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but basically the big picture thing is you could start it off as like, look, it used to be that in the sales world, X, Y, and Z is the case. We're at a point now where things might seem like they're fine. This is happening, but we're moving towards a time in which da-da, 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 and the thing that no one's quite twigged is just how much or just how risky this iceberg incoming is. Da-da, da-da, da-da. And then there's all sorts of ways you can kind of take that. If you leap into the future and you think something mind-blowing is going to happen that people couldn't get their heads around now, and like now is the time that people have to either make sure they're doing something or not doing something, then suddenly that's really foundational urgency. Do you see what I mean? And your big picture story around that can either be presented as there's this incredible opportunity, but now's the time, or there's this really bad thing coming around the corner and now's the time to avoid it. And those are causes. And depending on the business, that could be turned into a movement, like a flag to get behind.
Yeah.
Insanely powerful and the most fun because it doesn't involve introspection on your part. It's about like what's going on in the industry.
If you're selling to senior people, so we often talk about selling C-level, people with C in the title, you have to understand bigger picture stuff. They
Mhm.
do not care about your solution. They don't care your
Right.
house. They don't want to make any changes. They've set a business up, for goodness sake, and that's how they want it to run. Something from the outside is coming in, compelling event, and is making them have to change. They're unhappy about this. They want people who also get that to help with it. The easiest way I find to get them just focusing on the big picture stuff is respect.
Mm.
RESPCT. Regulatory, economic, social, political, environmental, competitive, or technological. There'll be something outside their business which is impacting them, pissed off with it. If you can get your head around that thing and start to tell a bit of a story around it, like you're saying, you have their ear. They will be interested in if you have now got ways in which you can help them do something about it. Just telling me about your funky products and stuff, not bothered. But that's the way in.
So it's a flip. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Because look, that's not my area. I mainly work with the founders,
Yeah.
smaller businesses, the solopreneurs, with small teams. But yeah, that C-level thing, yeah, that makes total sense. They all in my new shire, their individual team stuff.
Good people to do it.
Want to hear, yeah. So it's almost like beginning with the big picture stuff, and they might have an instinct that like, oh, what's this fucking AI thing all about? Like,
Yeah.
what is it? So then, like,
Yeah.
say, give that good context that resonates with them, that kind of taps into their fears, but also their instincts about like, can someone just bring me some kind of solution on this at the big picture level? Then that is power.
Somebody else is thinking about this and seems to have their thoughts joined up in a way which makes sense because you've got it across to me in the 2 minutes that I gave you before I pressed the button under the desk to get the PA to come in and chuck you out, pretending I'd forgotten the board meeting or whatever they do. It's like, oh no, actually, let him stay. This stuff's good.
Yeah. Well, let's
it's that clarity to boom, put that in place. Yeah.
And again, once you've pinned it down, once you've tried it out, and you see what kind of resonates and what doesn't, you recognize it as an asset to be refined and made stronger, then you're off to the races. But to finish off that thread, because we kind of said we'd do a little bit like on you,
Yeah.
what is the most powerful big picture influence you see happening on that's most relevant to that C-level person? What's
At
coming
the
up?
moment, this is work in progress. You are listing stuff, which is I'm a listing out myself. So
Let's do it.
ethical selling,
Ah,
ethical selling. That's book 3, mate. Oh God, you're making me tell these things. You and your magic cards. You haven't even
Well,
shown me a
this,
card, and that'll
yeah,
be the one that will catch their attention. What do you mean by that? Are these things which customers are asking for it anyway? Is best practice as it happens, and you end up selling more if you do it.
yeah.
Oh, what does that actually mean? Well, here's a more.
That's a really great example because it's a big picture thing. And I imagine, again, it's not my wheelhouse. Like you say, these people they don't want to have to solve these problems, right? They probably, ethical selling might be one of these things that like, oh, well, yeah, if we can, maybe we'd like to, make sure we're not unethical at least. But if you frame that big picture thing as an opportunity, a time limited opportunity, and it has to be true. We're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes or hoodwink them. But is that the kind of thing where we are moving towards a place where your customers, whether you realize it or not, are going to expect this more and more because of this, this, and this? And the winners and losers in the future are going to be the ones that are doing it like this, are the ones not doing it like this. And this takes time to implement, but it's powerful. Now is the time.
No, it's time. Customers
Seize
are
the
asking for it.
opportunity.
They're asking for it 'cause they either make you jump through hoops, compliance, literally you have to do certain things, or if they don't think that you're actually working in a way that's right, they just don't talk to you. So either way, a working story is, well, actually, I've used this for quite a bit, but I'm translating it across into this,
Mm-hmm.
is good people doing good things in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
The good people, wait, this translates on 2 levels. Good people, so I've got good competent salespeople, good things, and get results in a good way. Yeah, this is a process, but it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Good people, inherently decent at heart, who are having the kind of impact on the people they work with in a way which is sound and not going to be kind of taking the piss.
Yeah.
Still work in progress.
Good people, doing good things. That's a magic bullet. It's a great magic bullet. Ground level. This is what you need. If you want to solve all of this, and the magic bullet sounds simple. We've been talking for 5 hours, Mr. Mr. and Mrs. C level. This all boils down to the magic bullet. Good people. Da-da-da-da. Okay, well, that does sound pretty simple.
You have to lead with the magic bullet. You don't get 5 hours. You get 5 minutes
Yeah, sure.
to earn
Yeah.
an hour
Yeah.
to then get 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months with the rest of their team. They
Yeah.
open the door for you. But that's sales world. So
Absolutely. But then on that, the ethical selling is absolutely the title for what I would call an aspirational big picture story. Oh, sorry, the opportunity knocks. There's an opportunity if we like the ethical selling movement. If it sounds like it could be a movement, then it's a great opportunity knocks big picture story. Oh yeah, Fred Copestake was talking about this ethical selling. It's this, this, and this. Isn't it cool? Yeah, he must already have his maybe switched on.
he
Cutting
must be
edge.
because he's written a book about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Nico, I've lost track of time. we could talk about this until, well, for a very long time. It's absolutely fascinating, but I'm really pleased that we've managed to talk about, because when I saw what you're doing, the challenge, the customer challenge and the customer outcomes and the big picture stuff. I knew those were the other stuff is relevant. Absolutely. 100% customers, for salespeople, because it focuses on customers. That's the point. Yeah. The audience, the person who's hearing the story and sort of giving them the experience of hearing something which is actually enjoyable and easy and how our brain processes and all that good neuroscience stuff. Oh, we might have to do another.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, though, where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch, I'm active on LinkedIn, Nico Ceballos Jones. But to get the deeper understanding of this in a nice, quick, easy hit, if you head to storycaptain.co.uk and take the secret storytelling superpower quiz, then you're like 30 questions and 5 minutes away from getting a tailored report on where your strengths lie naturally as connected to each of these categories. And then you'll get a little strategic, game-changing roadmap in terms of how to best turn that natural inclination into a storytelling strategy. And alongside that, you'll also get 50 digital story cards that you can unlock in the Story Captain app for free, start using straight away. So that's a really cool way to find out more about yourself, but also take like the first step towards having this stuff genuinely transform your business. And if you're a certain kind of founder, a certain kind of entrepreneur, and I feel like I say this because these outcomes have been delivered in the work I've been doing, it can change your life.
Oh, mate, I can see it just from talking to you now. So LinkedIn, and then I was just thinking we're going to put the link into the show notes. So LinkedIn, and then the Story Captain website.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this stuff. I've absolutely loved it.
Hey, my genuine pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.